In terms of news this past week, the Samsung Galaxy XR headset has been flying around. It seems like a more affordable Vision Pro running Android. I'm sure you've seen some of that.
Yeah, I saw the announcement. Saw the device. I guess the two biggest, handheld OEMs are now coming for our eyeballs directly.
All right, let's try and break this down. It's backyard conversations. Let's get it. All right, so one thing I've noticed about this headset is obviously backed by the power of Google and Android. I'm seeing they have some native apps that have been completely excluded from the Vision Pro. Case in point, YouTube. So Google refused to
Yeah,
build a YouTube app for the Vision Pro, and people were like, "Man, maybe they don't have enough resources." But the Android version is like
that is
probably
actually
a
good
port,
of Google not having enough resources to build an app.
right? Right. So it seems like a political play because they knew what they were trying to accomplish with Samsung. Like they're playing the long play there, and it seems anti-competitive. Would you say?
Um, in a sense, I mean, now, like, it's easy to forget that YouTube is a Google property, because there are things that are, native to Apple that they don't put on other platforms, right? So, in a sense, even though YouTube is like everybody uses YouTube regardless of their platform, people don't think of YouTube as the kind of thing that should be confined to a particular platform. And I mean, on the Vision Pro, you can still access YouTube via the web, you and by the time you do a full screen video, then the experience ends up being the same between whether you're doing it on the web or doing it via an app, even though you jump through less technical hoops. Although them say less technical hoops, you jump through less connection hops to be looking at it via an app than via the web. Um, but yeah, I mean, what Samsung have done, it's been expected for a while, especially after the Vision Pro got announced.
Yes, I saw the initial announcement s- sometime last year, and then they said they were going to work on it over the coming year, and now it's here.
Hmm?
Um, what I've also noticed is a lot of the gestures are similar to like the kind of Vision Pro gestures, and I think I'm not sure, but do you know if they include some kind of control device in the box? That's not.
Or controller. I didn't see anything like that, but I mean, it makes sense that the gestures would be similar because the Vision Pro has had, a year, 2 years. Is it up to 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years ahead. So, I mean, if anybody now picks up a Samsung XR, a Samsung Galaxy XR, for them to now start learning new gestures, like imagine when Android came out, even though imagine when Android came out and then like being able to use an Android device required like a whole new different type of gesture interaction from what priors like Apple and BlackBerry had done. So
Right.
these things will create like some sort of standardization, maybe pinch to select, move up, move down, all those sort of things. It'll standardize eventually.
And I feel like this is still early days, especially in this XR space, right? I know Apple
Yeah,
released a
yeah.
new Vision Pro with M5, which is essentially the same Vision Pro, but like faster, quicker, better. Not necessarily a revamp of the operating system or anything in general. It was essentially the same Vision Pro, but an M5. And and so if
Oh,
you look at
okay.
the Vision Pro, it
Yeah.
was in that regard, like just dropping the M5 version. It's not a new device all over again. So
No,
if
it's
you look at
not.
Samsung's play here, I think they're not just waiting for permission from studios. For example, Netflix's app that I saw a screenshot of in the XR interface is the phone version, so it's still like a vertical app, which is something that you see that probably wouldn't happen on the App Store. Kind of like a phone app, basically,
Hmm.
right? And so something that
Yeah.
those kind of QA this kind of QA things that are more strict on the iOS side of things. But I think Google and Samsung are okay with experimenting with, let's put a phone app on this thing and see what it looks like.
I mean, it makes sense because, like, the way Apple and Android, publish apps, um, for iOS, iPadOS, macOS apps, they are all distinct apps, and so the screen size and resolution are like pretty precise, right, for the various devices. With Android, they've been doing this thing where it's like it's dynamic or responsive, where if it's the same app whether or not you're on a phone or on a tablet. So if you're on a tablet,
Or
the
affordable
UI
even.
basically exactly. So the UI would like expand to fill the space, and then maybe UI elements would move around and whatnot. So that makes it a bit easier for them to port those apps into VR or an XR headset, because it will just maybe take like the largest resolution and then put all the UI elements what it would be if it was maybe on a tablet or a large screen device.
Right. So we have, in terms of wearables, some are more socially acceptable than others. Think about Meta Ray-Ban glasses versus Vision Pro, like, on walking down the street.
None is socially acceptable.
I think people would rather like dismiss like it's whatever if they see you with Ray-Ban Meta versus Vision Pro, just like walking at the park, right? And in that
Yeah,
sense.
okay,
And
I get what you
so
mean.
yeah. So my point is seeing, Meta go in this direction, obviously in terms of wearables, Vision OS with Apple, and now Android, probably XROS. I don't know what they're calling it. It makes you wonder, like, how much more reach Google is going to want to have in terms of spaces. Think about mobile operating systems; they're all the way up there, and
Mm-hmm.
think about enterprise suite with like Google Docs and everything. They're there and they're getting increasingly more customers. And even in browsers, they stayed number one for the longest
Yeah.
time with Chrome and Chromium based browsers. And now you're wondering, someone said we're gonna knock them off their perch, right? And this is OpenAI. They're talking about, let's release a browser called Atlas. So what do you think about that?
Not who or what purge. So I mean, it's basically a browser plus AI. Yeah, they've done some fancy things with the interface and how you interface with it, but at the core of it is that it's a browser plus AI. And Google already has a browser plus AI. They've got Chrome and they've got Gemini. So I don't think Sora has a moat unless like the moat is ChatGPT's like model, right? But
Hmm.
and then ChatGPT now has its own app separately, and the ChatGPT Atlas browser is a Chromium browser. So I can't be excited by any new browser announcement from anybody if it's not built on a new browser engine, right? What I want to see is some sort of diversity in browser engines. Right now, we've only got three browser engines, and overwhelmingly, the web lives on one. I think like the number one and number two have such a huge gap between them. So the number one is Chromium, of course, which is what Chrome is based on, and almost every other thing. Then number two is WebKit for Safari. I think there's a few because I think Apple open source WebKit, so there's a few fringe browsers here and there that are built on WebKit as well. And then number three is Gecko, which is what Firefox is based on. So, and then there are browsers that are built on Firefox's engine. I think there's one called Zen, there's LibreWolf, the Tor browser, which is a privacy browser, is based on
Yeah.
Firefox as well. Which other one? Zen was like the Gecko version of the Arc browser, right? But the Arc
Yeah.
browser was based on Chromium. So, I mean, I don't know what like what the Atlas browser would bring to the table, other than that combination of OpenAI plus browser plus some fancy design tweaks and interactions here and there.
You're right. Because seeing it for me was like, this is essentially a Chrome wrapper, right? You just put, you just put some new fancy elements on top of already existing Chrome that we're familiar with. And this is something that, for the most part, it's already possible with current browsers because Firefox and Chrome have extensions from not just OpenAI, but like Perplexity and Claude that do more than half of what was announced in that video. Because I saw the presentation live, right?
Mm.
And the key selling point I think for OpenAI from that presentation was computer use, where you type like
Yeah,
add all these
the
things to
agent
my
stuff.
cart, the agentic
Yeah.
stuff, and
So
I'm like,
you'll look at the
for
web
that's
page
a
and
yeah, that's a turn off for me. Like just like telling something to put grocery shopping, like put your grocery in a cart without you looking. Sure, it doesn't check out, which I think is good, but that one was a turn off in that the browsing experience isn't just about delegating tasks to this
yeah,
computer,
it's about
but
like
there's times
looking
where
at
you
the
want to
thing
get
in front of you.
exactly you're browsing by yourself. Like you can't just like outsource all of that
If they had
activity.
sold it as an accessibility thing, like for someone
Right,
who is blind or something like that,
right.
maybe you make sense.
Right, I exactly 100. And the other turn off for me with the browser was the privacy nightmares is about to become because it's
Hmm.
dependent on so many chat logs, so many browser history, things that like I have Firefox set up in such a way that usually when you quit Firefox, like it basically clears the cache, deletes history.
Yeah,
It's just like
and that's
so,
it
so
too.
those trackers are minimized. But this browser prides itself on you not doing none of that because it has to reference a random tab from like 7 weeks ago. Like, what was that purple jacket I was looking at in February? Like, no, like if you really wanted that jacket, you should have put it on a wish list. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Well, I think the idea is that some people would have forgotten to put it on a wish list, and your so this is why I wish Apple was on top of their like AI thing, and not just Apple, but maybe some other company, because something like this should be able to run on device, right? Every time you
agreed.
load a web page, you're basically delivering that web page from the server to your own device, and it's cached. So if the AI, agent can do say a 30-day cache of your web browsing, that might fill up, very quickly depending on what it is you're browsing on. And then maybe some things might be left out, maybe like images, video, ads, things like that, just to minimize how much local storage it takes up. But if it was running locally and each cache, the AI has read the cache. In fact, sometimes you don't even need to store the web pages. Just each time you browse, the AI has read the web page and save that in its memory, in the model's memory, so that when you now want to recall and ask the AI a question about, the purple jacket you looked at 7 weeks ago, the AI isn't even looking at your browser history; it's looking at its own model from what it has read and has been trained on based on your browsing. That would
Right,
make a lot of sense. Because there are times when, like, I remember I saw something on the web, just like you said, and I'm going through history, right? And I
yeah,
have like two different browsers. I have a browser where maybe like for sensitive stuff, it'll clear, cache, and I have my regular browsing day to day, all that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with it. I'm skeptical that it'll, move up that far in adoption, but let's see what the interesting things they will do with it.
right. It's definitely worth watching. And to your point, yes, a lot of companies should step up and give us options, right? Because I feel like there's a few companies that have the resources and maybe not necessarily the moral compass because companies will be companies and companies
Mm-hmm.
always just want to make money, but they have the position where they can create alternatives for users where you don't necessarily have to depend on these data mining data obsessed companies that just want all your data for the AI, because at the end of the day, trust me, OpenAI is going to be serving ads. They're looking for the best possible way to serve
Oh
ads.
yeah, they're
And
probably going to even have some sort of like AI shopping experience in there. I think they mentioned something like that a while back. You know.
yeah, and yes, so if we have options, it'll be better and help mitigate this what is essentially some AI race to the bottom with these companies, right? You see what Meta is doing with all the AI acquisition they're getting in, and it begs the question, like, what exactly is the end goal here? They recently laid off, I think it was 600 employees in their AI division, which is so funny because they keep hiring and poaching AI employees from other companies, and now they're letting go of hundreds of their, and like, maybe the money to pay these ex Apple engineers has to come from somewhere, because you're seeing pay packages of like $250 million over like 3-4 years.
Like what I'm curious about is like Facebook is trying to poach Apple AI engineers,
Hmm.
but the AI engineers who were at Apple were not able to deliver the sort of thing that
Quote unquote,
OpenAI,
right? So it's
yeah,
good
or
enough
Google have been
for
able to.
Siri. Like, why are they all of a sudden the best thing since sliced bread for Zuckerberg and co? So
Especially
I think it might.
because Apple's focus has been like on-device machine learning,
Right.
and knowing Facebook, they would not want to give you that privacy. They want to do it on their own servers and then deliver the results to you.
Right. 100%. So it's really questionable. But I feel like with Zuckerberg and co, their end play, you always end up seeing the results after a couple of years, right? Either they do
Mhm.
something where they're like what they're doing with Instagram right now, where once upon a time they're like you could opt out, but now they change their terms and conditions on Instagram to the point where I think for everything you upload, they essentially have the right to
To
use it
train
for
their
AI
AI on
training.
it.
Yeah, so you
Mhm.
don't have a choice. As long as you're an Instagram user, you are surrendering your intellectual property
I'm gonna have to
to.
start glazing my art.
Yeah, speaking of glaze, for those who don't know, glaze is some kind of like essentially overlay that you could put on your art where it kind of like scrambles your art and makes it hard for it to be scraped by AI companies and such. But glaze has even gotten some criticism, and people are saying it's not as effective as advertised, but it's worth looking into anyways. If you at
Yeah, I
least have
mean,
one option.
like these things are, like you said, they race to the bottom. But I would rather do a glaze and then make it just a tad more difficult for the AI scrapers to read what's on there.
Agreed 100%. So the last thing we should talk about, I'm trying to pivot from meta to like gaming. We've talked a lot about Microsoft. I know this is another company that's so big on AI, right? And they acquired some major game studios in the last couple of years, which essentially made Microsoft the largest game publisher in the world, right? We're
Really?
talking about, yeah, talking about studios that make Call of Duty. We're talking about studios that, like Bethesda, for example, that also makes like tons of games that are multi-platform. And so
Mm-hmm.
over the past couple of years, I think the strategy is changing fast, right? They wanted to own exclusives, but then they ended up releasing a lot of these games because apparently there are rules surrounding them just taking Call of Duty, for example, strictly to Xbox and PC, and then closing out everybody else. So they couldn't do that, right?
Yeah. So I mean,
And
like any game that they got via acquisition that was already multi-platform, I think it will be
yes,
anti-competitive for them to then make it
to
exclusive.
just lock it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
but
and
the IP that they own, like they've not done anything with the Fable IP. I loved the first Fable game. It was such an
yeah.
enjoyable experience. Did you ever play?
I did not, but I know of Fable 1 and 2, right? Was there a third
Yeah,
one?
yeah. I don't know if they made a third, but I mean, we played Fable One back in uni, and it was a great game. I don't know
Yeah.
why they just left that
You
IP.
know,
Now, when I
speak,
hear Microsoft, the only IP that comes to mind is Halo.
speaking of Halo, Halo is now on PlayStation.
I mean, that if you give up Halo to PS, then what's the point of an Xbox?
What's the point of an Xbox? Why should it exist? And what's to say Fable is not next in line? Because if you look at the Mount Rushmore of like Xbox games, you say Halo before you think of any other title. Halo
Yep.
is the game that made Xbox what it is. Halo is the reason first person shooters like became what they are today, right? In many cases, especially for Xbox, right? So Halo being announced on PlayStation yesterday. Today we're recording on the 25th of October, so that will be 24th, 2025. It's just mind boggling to me that they would surrender such a huge IP. I don't know if surrender is the right term because now they're just trying to get as many. eyes on their product, which in this case now is the games, right? Regardless of platform, you know. And it's wild to me that you can now wishlist Halo on a PlayStation. As somebody who grew up on Halo, like I beat the original Halo game on my OG Xbox, and
Wow.
I played couch co-op, you know, back in the day.
Exactly. Like it does count. Does Halo still have couch co-op?
The new edition does have couch co-op for two
Okay.
players, and they now
Okay.
expanded it to four-player co-op online. So
Hmm.
and that's cross-platform, which I think is the best part of this announcement. So
Yeah.
basically, one person could have a PC, another person an Xbox, another person a PS5, and the last person could be on some ROG Ally or whatever handheld, and they could
Yeah.
all play the game.
The
That
same
is the
game.
dream, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
That is great. That is
That
great.
is really cool. So I think that's the best part of the announcement. I know there's a lot of criticism of just surrendering, like just giving up the console wars, even though they've announced
Yeah.
like they're gonna have a console for like the next gen. But it's hard to trust Microsoft now, right? You hike the prices of Game Pass, you lay off tons of people, and then you make your console more expensive to buy. You make your developer kit more expensive to buy. So now it costs more to make Xbox games. If you want to get into Xbox, they increase the price of the developer kit too. So
In fact,
interesting times ahead.
that's something they should have been. They should have done the opposite of that. If you're trying to like boost sales of the Xbox, then you want to attract developers to the Xbox, and one of the ways to attract developers is to lower the price of the dev kit. Ah, come on.
I know.
It's not making sense. Anyway, there's probably stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't really see.
Yeah.
But I also wouldn't want like a mono. Even though if I was going to buy a console now, it would either be a PS5 or a Steam Deck. But I
No
still don't
Switch?
want.
No Switch in that conversation? I would have thought you would have said maybe a Switch
Mm,
too.
so the thing is, well, there's no new Zelda on Switch,
Yet.
right? Yet.
Yeah. It's
But
inevitably gonna.
when I think of games on Switch. My favorite type of games are JRPGs. And a lot of them are cross-platform, especially the ones that are not like super high-end graphics, which I am
Mm,
not that big on high-end graphics. I need good story and good gameplay. But
right.
if I'm looking at a Switch, it will be because of Zelda, right? Like, and picking a console for one game doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So right
Especially if
now,
that
just
game
comparing
never,
things.
never, ever goes on sale.
What's that?
Especially if that game never goes on sale.
Ah,
Because that's when Nintendo makes a lot of their money. Their titles just almost never depreciate, right? So you
hmm
every other week there's a Sony Xbox game that's like 70% off, like 75% off, right? But with Nintendo,
it's Steam that you'll be seeing sales, mad sales.
yeah,
Like,
on Steam for PC, that's also true. Yeah. So I guess we'll find out what the future holds. We're gonna be there and talk about it. If Microsoft's approach to like this whole enterprise all in on AI, laying off people, like reducing the Xbox team, if that's gonna pay off or if it's gonna be a catastrophic mistake. I guess we'll find
yeah,
out right
yeah,
here on Backyard Conversations. And that's it from us. Thank you for your 5-star reviews and your 5-star ratings. We appreciate it. Thank you for making us one of the top listening to podcasts in the news category. Thank you for that. As always, you know where to find us: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, everywhere. This Backyard Conversations. We're out.